Good evening and welcome to a new episode of our program, The Daily Debates, Wednesday evening. I'm Yasmin Bakir. Tonight we're going to be shedding light on Egypt's efforts to reach stability and security in the region. Now, Egypt is playing a pivotal role and an important pillar when it comes to the decision-making, reconciliation process and bringing all different interests together on the political arena. We've seen a very firm stance with Egypt towards the Middle East files. The latest, of course, was the Gaza truce that took place, very inspired by the international community and the United States in particular. We're going to talk more about the effective role Egypt is playing in the upcoming period, and we're going to be also talking about where Egypt stands as the gate of the peace table and peacekeeping solutions, an important key in most of the international issues. We're seeing Egypt taking part and being invited to international events, whether it's on an economic level or a political level, and we're seeing a more active role being played in the African continent headed by Egypt, and we'll be discussing furthermore on this during this episode. But before we start off, let's take a look at the top stories of this evening and what's heading the headlines here in Egypt today. And of course, President Sisi and US Secretary of State have discussed regional issues, and we've seen President Abdel Fattah Sisi receiving early Wednesday US Secretary of State Antony Blinken as they had discussed the Palestinian cause, the counter-terrorism, the situation in Libya, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the bilateral relations between both Egypt and the United States. President Sisi and Blinken also tackled the updates on the Palestinian cause, specifically ways of reviving the stalled peace process. The latter valued Egypt's efforts to achieve the ceasefire between the Israelis and the Palestinians, as well as working on stabilizing it. Now, on the other hand, President Sisi lauded the American support to such efforts, pointing out that the recent developments mandates activating direct negotiations between both sides, backed by an effective involvement of the United States on that matter, and asserting that the solution must be both fair and comprehensive, so it would preserve the rights of the Palestinian people in accordance with the international reference. Shed further light, of course, on the visit, and this is the first visit of its kind since US President Joe Biden took office more than 100 days ago. Now we're seeing a very international role being played in terms of visits and diplomatic means. We've known that Blinken before that had met with President Mahmoud Abbas on Tuesday. He also visited Amman, so Cairo is one of the stops in his Middle Eastern tour. Now, to discuss further more on this visit and the in-depth of the agenda that was on this visit, I'm very much delighted to have joining me over the phone His Excellency Ambassador Hussein Haridy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening. Thank you for joining us, Your Excellency.
Good evening, madam. It's my pleasure to be with 9 TV.
Very well, Your Excellency, and of course, the timing of this visit is of significance. This comes right after the truce that took place, brokered by Egypt between the Israelis and Palestinians. We've seen two phone calls being held on a political level between President Joe Biden and President Sisi in less than a week. Reflecting on its significance, may you give us your intake?
Well, the tour of Mr. Antony Blinken, the United States Secretary of State in the Middle East, came in the wake of the Israeli aggression against the Gaza Strip. The Biden administration is looking forward to consolidating the ceasefire on the one hand, and on the other hand, to make sure reconstruction efforts and humanitarian aid would enter Gaza as quickly as possible. And the Biden administration has announced that it would see to it that the assistance, international assistance, American assistance, will be provided to the people in Gaza through the United Nations agencies, through the Palestinian Authority, and through Egypt and other partners of the United States in the Middle East. Also, the American administration would like to listen to its Middle Eastern partners on the best way to relaunch peace negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Having said that, the Biden administration does not believe that the present moment is propitious for the resumption of peace talks between the Palestinians and the Israelis. On the other hand, we have to take note that this administration has revised the two-state solution. President Biden, in his phone calls with the president of the chairman of the Palestinian Authority, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, with the Israeli Prime Minister, has insisted on the two-state solution. In his two phone calls with President al-Sisi this week, of course, he lauded and he praised the role played by Egypt, the role played by President al-Sisi, and what he for their effort.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Hussein Haridy, are you still on the line? Because I think we lost connection with you. All right, my apologies. I believe we have technical glitches. Ambassador Hussein Haridy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much, and we'll get back to you soon on this. We'll also be discussing this as part of our topic today, because Egypt's role, and unlike the conspiracies or the speculations on the different positions and stances that the United States and Egypt have on the major files in the Middle East, well, at least as far as the phone calls between both leaders and the successful visit by Blinken today, it had proven that to a very large extent does the United States not only praise Egypt for its role, but also aligns with the Egyptian positions towards the Middle East file. Let's take a look at this report before we start our episode and how Egypt's foreign policy is supporting regional stability.
Supporting the pillars of stability in the Middle East is one of the objectives of Egypt's foreign policy during President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's era. This is what the president's speeches always point to on different occasions, through the recurrent use of certain vocabulary such as internal stability, homeland stability, consolidation of state stability, the region's stability, secure and stable environment, and the value of security, safety and stability, as well as interactions between Cairo and its regional sphere. This has been reflected by different actions illustrating compatibility between approach and action. The attempt to resolve the Libyan conflict, backing the Lebanese government, reinforcing the Arabian Gulf security, elevating the level of relations with Iraq and Jordan, institutionalizing security and intelligence aspects among Arab countries via a regular platform, and addressing neighboring countries' interferences in Arab countries' internal affairs. Movement exerted by the Egyptian presidency and foreign ministry during the last years echoed the governing trends of Egypt's policy path towards resolving armed conflict in the Arab world or regional interferences in Arab affairs. Arab countries are confronting multiple threats, including infringement on their structures, the growing danger of terrorist organizations, and the expansion of organized crime, which all requires cooperation and joint security coordination. Thus, President al-Sisi stressed in his speech during the inauguration of the Arab Intelligence Forum headquarters on the 1st of February this year that the importance of collective action in the framework of Arab Brotherhood to restore stability in all the region's countries, especially in areas that witness instability and crises due to activities of terrorist groups which are backed by foreign regional powers and international ones aiming to create chaos in order to control the destinies of our beloved nations. In order to realize this stability, the Egyptian approach aims to preserve national institutions and protect them from falling into disintegration, strengthen regular armies, address the spread of armed militias and terrorist groups, reach peaceful settlements to armed conflicts, and stop foreign interference by regional parties in the internal affairs of Arab countries.